My mom stood up at Thanksgiving dinner and announced I was adopted like she was passing the salt. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Not my aunt with her fork halfway to her mouth. Not my cousin Jonah beside me, whose knee bumped mine under the table like he was checking if I was still alive. Not my father, Paul, who stared down at his plate as if the turkey had suddenly become the most important thing in the room. And definitely not my sister Brielle. She smiled. Not a shocked smile, not an uncomfortable one, a satisfied one, like she had been waiting all night for my mother to say it. Denise Harper stood at the head of the table in her cream sweater, gold bracelet shining under the chandelier, one hand resting on the back of her chair like she was giving a toast. Only she wasn't. She was tearing my life open in front of 18 people. "I think it's time we stop pretending," she said, her voice calm enough to sound rehearsed. Maliya was adopted as an infant. The room went so quiet I could hear the ice shift in someone's glass. My hand tightened around my napkin. I looked at my mother first, because some stupid part of me waited for her to laugh, to say she was joking, to say she had worded something wrong. But Denise didn't blink. She looked straight at me and added, "And maybe now, she'll stop acting like blood gives her the same claim to everything." My stomach dropped so hard I thought I might be sick right there between the mashed potatoes and cranberry sauce. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. I was 24 years old enough to pay rent, old enough to sit through awkward family dinners, old enough to know when someone was trying to humiliate me. But I was not old enough for my mother to announce in front of the entire family that I wasn't really hers. Across the table, Brielle lowered her fork slowly, her lips curved again. That smile told me the announcement hadn't slipped out. It had been loaded, aimed, and fired. 10 minutes earlier, Brielle had been leaning toward me with her soft, fake voice, asking about Grandma Evelyn's account. "You know, Mom said Grandma always meant for that money to help the family," she'd said. I had kept my voice low. "Grandma put it in my name, Brielle." She'd tilted her head. "That's a little selfish, don't you think? It's an education and emergency fund. She told me not to touch it unless I needed it." Brielle's eyes had sharpened then. "Right, because Grandma always made exceptions for you." I had looked down at my plate instead of arguing. That was what I did in this family. I swallowed the comments. I made myself smaller. I tried to earn peace from people who handed it to Brielle for free. Denise had been watching from the end of the table. She saw Brielle's irritation. She saw me refuse. And something in her face changed. Now I understood. This wasn't honesty. This was punishment. Aunt Celeste whispered, "Denise." My mother lifted one hand, stopping her before she could finish. "No," Denise said. "Everyone deserves the truth. I have carried this for too long." I stared at her. "You carried it?" My voice came out smaller than I wanted, but every head turned toward me. Denise's eyes narrowed, warning me not to embarrass her while she was embarrassing me. "Yes," she said. "Your father and I took you in, raised you, gave you a family. And lately, you've been acting like gratitude is beneath you." Brielle made a tiny sound, almost a laugh. I turned toward her. She shrugged, barely. "It explains a lot, honestly." Jonah said, "Brielle, shut up." That was when I noticed Uncle Ray. He wasn't looking at me with pity like everyone else. He was looking at Denise. His face had gone pale, but not with surprise, with anger. His fingers were wrapped around the edge of the table so tightly, his knuckles looked white. His eyes flicked once toward the sideboard behind my mother, where old family photos stood in silver frames. One of them showed Denise when she was younger, standing beside Ray and a woman I only knew as an old friend of the family. No one had ever told me her name. My mouth had gone dry. "Who knew?" I asked. Denise answered too fast. "Your father and I, that's all that matters." I looked at Paul. He didn't nod. He didn't look at me. He just pressed his lips together and kept staring at his plate. That silence hit harder than the announcement. Because if it were simple, he could have said yes. If it were true the way Denise said it, he could have backed her up. Instead, he sat there like a man hiding behind mashed potatoes. I pushed my chair back. Denise's voice snapped across the table. "Where do you think you're going?" I stood anyway, even though my knees felt loose. "Away from this." "Oh, of course." She gave a small bitter laugh for the audience. "Walk out. Prove my point. After everything we did for you, you can't even sit and hear the truth." Brielle leaned back in her chair. Most people would be grateful they were kept at all. The words struck the table like a slap. Someone gasped. Aunt Celeste looked away. Jonah stood halfway, like he might come around the table. My face burned so hot I could barely see clearly. Kept, not loved, not raised. Kept. Every cold birthday suddenly flashed through my mind. Every time Denise praised Brielle for being my real helper. Every time I got told I was too sensitive, too dramatic, too needy, too ungrateful. All those little cuts lined up into one ugly shape. I looked at Denise and asked, was this why you treated me differently? For the first time that night, her perfect expression cracked, only for a second. Then she said, don't make this dramatic. But Uncle Ray moved. His chair scraped back so loudly the whole table flinched. Denise turned toward him. Ray, don't. He stood slowly, eyes locked on my mother, his jaw tight. Then he said she left out one part. The scrape of Uncle Ray's chair seemed to cut the air in half. For 1 second, Denise looked less like my mother and more like someone who had heard a lock click open behind her. Ray, she said, sharper this time, sit down. Uncle Ray didn't sit. Around the table, everyone looked between them. My cousins stopped pretending not to stare. Aunt Celeste's hand hovered near her water glass. Brielle's smile faded just enough for me to notice. I stood frozen beside my chair, my palms damp, my heart beating too hard. What part? I asked. Denise turned on me instantly. Maliya, don't encourage him. Encourage him. My voice cracked. You just told everyone I was adopted at Thanksgiving dinner, and I'm the one encouraging something? Brielle sighed like I was embarrassing her. Can you not make this a scene? Jonah snapped. She didn't make it a scene. Your mom did. Denise ignored him. Her attention stayed on Uncle Ray, and for the first time in my life I saw fear in her face. Not guilt, not softness. Fear. It was quick, like a shadow passing behind a curtain, but it was there. Uncle Ray swallowed. Denise, you shouldn't have done it like this. I said sit down. No, he said quietly. Not after that. My father finally moved. Paul set his fork down with careful precision, like the sound might make everything worse. Ray, maybe this isn't the place. Uncle Ray looked at him. You knew she was going to say it. Paul didn't answer. That silence sent another shock through the room. I backed away from the table before anyone could see my hands shaking. The dining room felt too hot, too crowded, too full of eyes. I turned and walked into the kitchen where Denise's perfect Thanksgiving dishes were stacked in neat rows beside the sink. The smell of butter and sage made my stomach twist. I gripped the counter and tried to breathe. A few seconds later, footsteps followed me. I didn't turn around until my father said, Maliya. I wiped my face quickly, angry that tears had come at all. Did you know? Paul stood in the kitchen doorway, with his shoulders rounded, looking smaller than he ever had at the head of our old family photos. He said, your mother shouldn't have announced it that way. That's not what I asked. He rubbed his hand over his mouth. It's complicated. The words landed wrong. Not yes, not no, complicated. I stared at him. Am I adopted? His eyes flicked toward the dining room. Maliya, please? Answer me. He looked tired, cornered. But he still didn't answer. Behind him, Denise's voice drifted in from the dining room, smooth again, telling everyone to keep eating, that I was emotional, that this was exactly why she had waited so long. She had split me open and was already cleaning the blood off the floor before anyone could blame her. Paul lowered his voice. Your mother handled most of it. Handled what? He closed his eyes. That was when I remembered the locked file cabinet in Denise's home office. The one I was never allowed to touch. I remembered being 16 and needing my birth certificate for my first job, and Denise snapping, I'll get it, before I even stepped into the room. I remembered asking why mine looked newer than Brielle's, and Denise saying the original had been ruined in a basement flood. We never had a basement flood. Not one anyone had ever mentioned, not one photo, not one insurance complaint, not one ruined box in the garage. And I remembered Brielle, years ago, smirking from the hallway after I got into an argument with Mom about college forms. You're lucky Mom picked you, she'd said. When I asked what that meant, she laughed and said, God, Maliya, it was a joke. Now the joke had teeth. I pushed past Paul and went back to the dining room. Conversations died as soon as I entered. Denise stood beside her chair, arms crossed. Brielle sat with her wine glass near her mouth, watching me like I was the entertainment after dessert. I looked directly at Denise. Did you legally adopt me? Aunt Celeste made a small sound. Someone whispered, oh my God. Denise's face hardened. After everything I just said, that's your concern? Yes. Your concern should be how cruel you're being to the people who raised you. Did you legally adopt me? Brielle leaned forward. You see, this is why Mom finally told everyone. You immediately turn it into an accusation. I didn't look at her. I'm asking a question. Denise stepped closer. No, you're trying to humiliate me in my own home. A laugh escaped me, but it had no humor in it. You announced I was adopted in front of the whole family because I wouldn't hand Brielle access to grandma's money. Brielle's cheeks flushed. That is not what happened. Jonah muttered. That's exactly what happened. Denise pointed at him. Stay out of this. Aunt Celeste stood slowly. Denise, enough. My mother turned like she'd been betrayed. Celeste. No, Aunt Celeste said, her voice low. You don't get to drop something like that and then decide nobody can ask questions. Denise's jaw tightened. Celeste looked at me, and her expression was strange. Not pity. Recognition. Maliya, she said carefully. There was a year Denise wasn't around much. Around the time you were born. She told everyone she was helping a friend out of state. Denise went still. Uncle Ray looked down at the floor. I felt the room tilt. Out of state? Celeste nodded. That's what she said. But I was adopted as an infant, I said. So why would she disappear before bringing me home? Denise slammed her palm on the table. Plates jumped. That is enough. No one spoke. She pointed at Celeste first, then Ray. I will not have you dragging up things you don't understand because Maliya wants to punish me. Ray finally lifted his head. She deserves to know, she deserves gratitude, Denise hissed. I looked at him. Uncle Ray, what did she leave out? He opened his mouth. Denise moved faster than I expected. Ray, if you say one more word, I promise you. You will not be the one making decisions for Mom anymore. You think I can't make that happen? The threat hit him visibly. His face tightened. Their mother, my grandmother's sister, was elderly and dependent on family help. Denise controlled schedules, visits, paperwork, everything. Even then, even after blowing up my life, she knew exactly which pressure point to press. Ray's mouth closed. That silence told me the secret was bigger than Thanksgiving. I grabbed my coat from the hallway with hands that barely worked. Jonah offered to drive me, but I shook my head. I needed air more than comfort. On the porch, cold November wind hit my face. I had one foot on the top step when the door opened behind me. Brielle came out, wrapping her cardigan around herself. For a moment, she didn't perform. No audience, no wounded sister act, just that same satisfied look. Now that you know, she said softly. Are you still going to pretend Grandma's account belongs to you? By the next morning, Thanksgiving had followed me home. My phone wouldn't stop lighting up. At 7:12, Aunt Lisa texted, I'm so sorry you found out that way. At 7:18, my cousin Marcus sent, I don't want to get involved, but maybe don't fight your mom right now. At 7:31, someone from Brielle's side of the family wrote, Denise gave you everything. Please remember that before making this about money. I sat on the edge of my bed in the same clothes I had worn home, staring at that last message until the words blurred. Making this about money. I hadn't posted anything. I hadn't called anyone. I hadn't even known what was supposedly happening in my own life until my mother stood up at Thanksgiving and said it like a punishment. But somehow, by morning, I was already the greedy one. My phone buzzed again. Mom. I let it ring. It stopped, then started again. On the third call, I answered but didn't speak. Denise's voice came through calm and controlled, like she had slept perfectly. You need to come over. No. A pause. Maliya, don't start this childish silent treatment. I'm not coming over. We need to settle things like adults. That word, settle, made my grip tighten around the phone. Settle what? The confusion you created last night. I laughed once, sharp and tired. I created? You walked out. You questioned me in front of everyone. You upset your sister. My sister smiled while you humiliated me. Denise exhaled like I was testing her patience. Brielle is hurt too. This affects her. How? Another pause, smaller this time. Then Denise said, I'll send paperwork. My skin went cold. Paperwork for what? For clarity, she said, since you're suddenly so concerned about legal details. The call ended before I could answer. 10 minutes later, an email arrived from Denise with no greeting, no apology, no explanation. Just an attachment titled Family Acknowledgement Statement. I opened it at my kitchen table, with my hands still shaking. The document was only 2 pages, but every line felt like it had been written to erase me. I, Maliya Harper, acknowledge that I am not a biological descendant of Denise Harper, Paul Harper, or Evelyn Harper. I acknowledge that family sets, heirlooms, and inherited funds should remain with biological family members, unless otherwise legally required. I agree not to contest redistribution of any funds mistakenly assigned to me due to family misunderstanding. Then I saw it. Grandma Evelyn's Education and Emergency Fund was named directly, not vaguely, not by accident. The account Grandma had sat me down about when I was 19, her hands thin around mine, telling me, this is for when you need a door no one can close. I pushed back from the table so fast the chair hit the wall. My phone rang again. This time, I called Denise before she could call me. She answered on the second ring. Good, you saw it. What is this? It's a statement. It's a trap. It's maturity, Denise said. You are old enough to understand that certain things belong inside the family. I stared at the document on my screen. I thought you said I was family. You know what I mean? No, I really don't. Her voice hardened. Your grandmother was sentimental. She made emotional decisions near the end. Grandma knew exactly what she was doing. And you know that because she made you feel special, Denise asked. Maliya, we raised you. We made sacrifices. The least you can do is stop clinging to things that were never meant to be yours. Before I could answer, another voice came through, closer to the speaker, Brielle. Tell her the fund should be redistributed. My breath caught. Denise said, Brielle, I'm handling it. No, she needs to hear it. Brielle took the phone, or leaned close enough that her voice sharpened in my ear. Real daughters should come first, Maliya. There it was. Not hidden under manners. Not dressed up as family fairness. Real daughters. I looked at the Thanksgiving messages still stacked on my phone and understood exactly why my mother had waited until everyone was watching. She hadn't told me because I deserved truth. She told me because Brielle wanted me weak before they asked me to sign myself out of Grandma's protection. I'm not signing this, I said. Denise came back on the line. Then people will know this was always about money for you. No, I said. They'll know you announced I was adopted at dinner because Brielle wanted Grandma's account. Brielle scoffed in the background. You're delusional. Denise's voice dropped. Be very careful, Maliya. Gratitude can disappear quickly. You already made it disappear. I hung up. For 5 minutes, the apartment was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. Then my phone began vibrating with notifications. Brielle had posted. Not my name. She was too careful for that. Some people find out they were chosen by a family and still try to steal from them. Gratitude matters. Blood matters too. Underneath it, little hearts appeared, comments from relatives, praying for your mom. So sad when people forget who raised them. Stay strong, Brielle. I read until my chest felt hollow, then locked the screen. The private humiliation had become public without my name ever being used. That afternoon, while I was still trying to decide whether to answer Aunt Celeste's missed call, another number appeared. The credit union. I answered quickly. Hello? Is this Maliya Harper? Yes, this is Karen from Northbridge Credit Union. I'm calling regarding the Evelyn Harper Education and Emergency account. I sat up straight. What about it? There was an inquiry this morning about transferring or contesting beneficiary control. I can't discuss the requesting party's details over the phone, but I need to ask whether you authorized a family representative to speak on your behalf. My mouth went dry. No, I said. Absolutely not. All right, then I recommend you come in with identification and any supporting documents. As soon as possible. Can they access it? Not without proper authorization, Karen said carefully. But given the inquiry, we should verify everything. After I hung up, I didn't cry. Something colder took over. They weren't just trying to shame me at Thanksgiving. They were trying to make the world treat me like I didn't count. I pulled a folder from the bottom drawer of my desks and spread everything across the table. My driver's license, social security card, the copy of Grandma Evelyn's letter, and the only birth certificate I had ever been allowed to keep. I stared at it for a long time. Denise Harper, Paul Harper, both listed as parents. No adoption notation, no agency name, no amended label I could understand. But near the filing date, faint and almost hidden under the copy mark, was a correction stamp. I reached for Grandma's letter next. I had read the first page so many times I knew parts by heart. Her careful handwriting. Her reminder not to let anyone shame me for needing help. Her sentence about the account being mine. Then, near the bottom, I noticed a line I had somehow never truly seen. No matter what Denise tells you one day, this was always meant to protect what your mother wanted for you. I stopped breathing. What your mother wanted. Not what I wanted. Not what Denise wanted. What your mother wanted for you. The credit union smelled like carpet cleaner and burnt coffee. I sat across from Karen, the account representative, with my folder pressed flat beneath both hands, like someone might reach across the desk and take it. The morning sun came through the blinds in thin stripes, cutting across the documents Grandma Evelyn had left me. Karen adjusted her glasses and looked from my license to the account screen. You're the named account holder for the Education and Emergency Fund. So no one can just move it? No, she said. Not without legal authority or your authorization. I breathed out for the first time since I'd walked in. Then Karen's expression shifted. But I do need to tell you what happened yesterday, she continued. Two women came in asking questions about whether this account could be reviewed. My hands tightened on the folder. My mother and sister, Karen hesitated just long enough to confirm it. They said, she went on carefully, that recent family information raised concerns about whether you were the rightful beneficiary. The words made my face go hot. Recent family information. Thanksgiving. My mother standing up with a serving dish cooling in the middle of the table, turning my identity into evidence against me. They told you I was adopted, I said. Karen's mouth pressed into a thin line. They referenced that, yes. And they thought that meant Grandma's account shouldn't be mine. They were told they would need documentation. They did not have any. We did not release account information. But given the request, I advised that you come in. I nodded, but my throat felt tight. Denise and Brielle hadn't waited a day. They had gone from humiliating me in front of the family to walking into a financial institution as if the announcement itself made me less real. Karen slid a form toward me. We can add an additional verification note to the account. No changes without in-person confirmation from you. Do it, I said. When I left, the air outside felt too bright. My phone had more messages, but I didn't open them. I sat in my car and stared at the steering wheel until my hands stopped trembling. 2 days later, I went to the church charity event only because Grandma Evelyn's name was on the invitation. The fellowship hall was decorated with white tablecloths, paper leaves, and framed photos from past donation drives. Near the front, a small memorial table held one of Grandma's pictures beside a vase of yellow flowers. She had spent 20 years organizing food baskets from that church. If I stayed away, Denise would get to stand near Grandma's photo and act like the keeper of the family story. I wouldn't give her that. The moment I walked in, conversations bent around me. People didn't stop talking all at once. It was worse than that. Their voices softened. Eyes moved over me, then away. A woman who had known me since childhood touched my arm and said, "How are you holding up, sweetheart?" Like I had survived a house fire instead of my own mother's dinner speech. Across the room, Brielle stood beside Denise near the refreshment table. Brielle saw me first. She leaned toward an older woman from church, her face arranged into pain. I couldn't hear every word, but I caught enough. "She's just been so hostile since finding out," Brielle said. "Mom tried to handle it with honesty, and Maliya made it about money." The woman glanced at me with pity sharpened by judgment. Denise placed a hand on Brielle's shoulder, like Brielle was the one who had been wounded. I walked toward Grandma's memorial table instead of toward them. Jonah was near the donation boxes, and he lifted 2 fingers in a quiet wave. At least someone wasn't looking at me like I had become a problem overnight. My cousin Tessa approached while I was reading the card under Grandma's photo. "Hey," she said awkwardly, "are you still coming to Christmas?" I looked at her. "Why wouldn't I?" She winced. "I just meant, now that things are different." "Different how?" Tessa opened her mouth, then closed it. "I don't know. I'm sorry. That came out wrong." Before I could answer, one of Denise's friends, Mrs. Calloway, came up beside us and sighed at Grandma's picture. "Evelyn was such a generous woman," she said. Then she looked at me. "And your mother too. Not everyone would raise another woman's child like her own." Another woman's child. The phrase settled heavily in my chest. I asked, "What woman?" Mrs. Calloway blinked. "Well, I don't know, dear. Your birth mother, I suppose." "What was her name?" She looked suddenly uncomfortable. I'm not sure Denise ever said. That was the third person who had repeated the story without knowing the most basic part of it. Another woman. Birth mother. Adopted. No name, no facts, just Denise's version spreading like spilled wine. I turned away from the memorial table and nearly ran into my mother. Denise's smile was tight enough to crack. "You need to stop." "Stop what?" "Embarrassing this family." I almost laughed. "You announced I was adopted in front of 18 people. And now you're questioning everyone like you're investigating a crime." I asked one woman for a name. Denise stepped closer, lowering her voice. "You have no idea what your real mother was like." Everything in me went still. Real mother. Denise's eyes flickered as soon as she heard herself. "I mean birth mother," she corrected quickly. But I had caught it, so had Jonah, who had moved closer without making it obvious. I said, "Then tell me her name." Denise's mouth tightened. "This is not the place." "That didn't bother you at Thanksgiving." Her face hardened. "Do not test me in public." "Why?" I asked. "Because people might hear the part you left out?" Before she could answer, a male voice cut in from behind me. "Evelyn never saw her that way." Uncle Ray walked up beside the memorial table, his coat still on, his expression set. Denise went pale. Ray, an older man near the flowers, cleared his throat. I only said the girl was lucky to be taken in. Ray looked at him. Don't call her adopted Charity. Evelyn would have hated that. The room shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically. But people noticed. Heads turned. Denise's grip tightened around her purse strap. Brielle hurried over. Uncle Ray, you're confusing her. No, he said. She's confused because people keep repeating things they don't understand. Brielle's eyes flashed. Mom is the one who raised her. And Evelyn is the one being honored today, Ray said. So maybe don't use her memorial table to take things from the granddaughter she protected. Brielle shut her mouth. For the first time since Thanksgiving, Denise did not have the room fully under control. A woman I vaguely recognized from Grandma's church committee approached me after Ray walked away. She had silver-streaked hair and a careful, searching expression. Maliya, she said softly. I'm Marisol. I helped Evelyn with the church records. I nodded. I remember you. She glanced toward Denise before lowering her voice. Your grandmother left something once. A sealed envelope. She told me if Denise ever used the adoption story against you, I was supposed to make sure you got it. My pulse jumped. You have it? Not here. It should be in one of the old archive boxes from the memorial committee. What's in it? I don't know. Evelyn sealed it. Marisol's eyes moved again toward Denise. After the funeral, your mother tried to collect all of Evelyn's papers. I don't know if this one is still there. Can we look? Tonight, she said, after the event clears out. I nodded quickly. Please. Marisol touched my arm. There's one thing I remember. The envelope wasn't marked Maliya Harper. My breath caught. She leaned closer. It had your full birth name written on it. Before I could ask what name, Brielle's voice came from right behind us. What birth name? Brielle's voice landed between us like a hand slamming a drawer shut. Marisol's fingers tightened around my arm for half a second, then released. Her expression changed immediately, smoothing into polite confusion. I'm sorry, she said. Brielle stood close enough that I could smell her perfume. She had her phone in one hand, screen glowing against her palm. Her eyes moved from Marisol to me, then back again. You said birth name, Brielle said. What birth name? I looked at Marisol, but she had already stepped back. I said I might have misremembered a label. Marisol replied carefully. Evelyn had many files here too. Brielle didn't believe her. Neither did I. My sister's lips pressed into a flat line. Maliya, Mom wants you. I'm busy. No, Brielle said, lifting the phone slightly. She wants you now. Across the fellowship hall, Denise was already moving toward the exit with her purse clutched under her arm. She glanced once at us, and the look on her face confirmed everything. Brielle had texted her before she even spoke. Marisol's leaned in just enough for only me to hear. Archive room. Back hallway. 5 minutes, then she walked away toward the kitchen volunteers, leaving Brielle staring after her. What are you doing? Brielle asked. I met her eyes. Finding out why Mom keeps panicking every time someone says more than 2 sentences to me. Her face tightened. You're humiliating yourself. No, I said. That already happened at Thanksgiving, remember? You smiled through it. For once? She had no instant answer. I didn't wait for one. I crossed the fellowship hall, toward the back hallway, passing the donation table and the framed photo of Grandma Evelyn. The door to the archive room was half hidden between a supply closet and a bulletin board full of old church announcements. Marisol unlocked it with a key from a ring clipped to her belt. Inside, the room smelled like dust, paper, and old cardboard. Tall shelves lined both walls. Plastic bins were stacked beside file boxes, with handwritten labels, donation drives, memorial programs, choir records, Evelyn H. committee notes. Marisol shut the door softly behind us. We don't have much time, she said. If Denise sits left, she may come back with an excuse. Do you think she took the envelope? I don't know, Marisol said. But after Evelyn's funeral, she came here twice asking for anything with Evelyn's handwriting. My stomach tightened. We started with the box labeled Evelyn H. Memorial. Marisol lifted folders out one by one, moving quickly but carefully. I searched through programs, sign-in sheets, handwritten schedules for food baskets, and donation receipts paper-clipped in bundles. Grandma's handwriting appeared everywhere, slanted and firm, like she was still organizing things from beyond the grave. For a few minutes, all I heard was paper sliding against paper. Then Marisol stopped. It should have been here, she said. The folder in her hand was empty except for a yellow sticky note stuck to the inside flap. No envelope. No sealed message. just a faint rectangle where something had been pressed for a long time and then removed. My chest sank. When did you last see it? I asked. After the funeral. I checked, because Evelyn made me promise. Marisol touched the empty space with 2 fingers. It was here. I reached into the box again, refusing to accept that we had already lost. Under a stack of old memorial programs, I found a smaller folder with no label. Inside were photocopies, not originals. A hospital map, a visitor policy sheet, 2 faded badges copied onto 1 page. I pulled it closer. One badge had Denise Harper's name, but not under patient. Visitor. The date was from the year I was born. My eyes jumped to the second badge. Alina Hart. The name meant nothing to me, and somehow that made it worse. Marisol, I said, holding up the page. Do you know who this is? She took it and went still. I heard the name once or twice, she said. Evelyn didn't talk about her in public. Was she my birth mother? Marisol's face softened with something close to sorrow, but she shook her head. I can't say what I don't know. I looked back at the page. Denise had told everyone she adopted me after an out-of-state arrangement. Aunt Celeste remembered her disappearing around the time I was born. But this badge placed Denise at a local hospital that same week, not as a patient, not as someone giving birth, but as a visitor. Why would Mom be visiting a hospital here if she was supposed to be out of state? I asked. Marisol didn't answer. Because there was no harmless answer. I took a photo of the photocopy with my phone, then called Uncle Ray from the archive room. He picked up on the second ring. Maliya? I found a name, I said. Alina Hart. Silence. Not confusion. Not surprise. Recognition. Uncle Ray? He exhaled slowly. Where did you hear that name? In Grandma's church files. There's a hospital visitor badge. Denise was there too. Who is Alina? His voice dropped. Not over the phone. My hand went cold around the device. Was she my birth mother? Another silence. Then he said, meet me at the diner off Mills Road. The back parking lot. Don't tell Denise. That sounds like an answer. It's not the full one, he said. And I won't give you pieces she can twist. Meet me. Marisol insisted on walking me to my car. Brielle was nowhere in the hall, but the uneasy feeling of being watched stayed between my shoulder blades the whole way out. 20 minutes later, I pulled into the diner lot. Uncle Ray was already there, standing beside his truck with his hands in his jacket pockets. He looked older than he had on Thanksgiving. I got out with the photocopy folded in my hand. Tell me, I said. Ray looked across the lot before speaking. Alina Hart was Denise's closest friend when they were young, almost like a sister. My throat tightened. And me? His eyes met mine. Alina died when you were an infant. The world seemed to shrink down to the space between us. I pressed the photocopy against my chest. So she is my mother. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Ray looked pained. Maliya, Alina trusted the wrong person near the end. But not in the way you think. I need proof before I say more. What proof? A notarized letter Evelyn showed me once. If I can find that, Denise can't deny what happened. His phone buzzed before I could ask another question. He looked at the screen and his jaw clenched. He turned it toward me. A text from Denise. If you keep digging, I'll tell Mom you're the reason Evelyn's last months were so hard. Ray shoved the phone back in his pocket. That's how she keeps people quiet. Not me, I said. On the drive home, I made 2 decisions. I would request my original birth records, whatever process that took. And I would find legal help before Denise could turn another lie into paperwork. But when I reached my apartment, the door wasn't fully closed. It sat open by an inch. I pushed it with my fingertips. The living room looked almost normal until I saw my desk drawer hanging out. The folder with Grandma Evelyn's letter was gone. I stood in my doorway for several seconds, not moving. Nothing was overturned. No broken glass. No drawers dumped onto the floor like in movies. That almost made it worse. Whoever had come in had known exactly where to look. My desk drawer hung open. The blue folder was gone. Grandma Evelyn's letter was gone with it. I stepped back into the hallway and called the police before I touched anything else. My voice sounded strangely calm while I gave my address, but my hand shook so hard I nearly dropped the phone. When the officer arrived, he looked around my apartment with a tired, cautious expression. Any forced entry? He asked. I don't know. The door was open when I got here. He checked the frame. No visible damage. My mother has a spare key, I said, or she did. I never got it back. He wrote that down, but his face didn't change. What was taken? A folder. Documents. A letter from my grandmother. Anything with financial information? Related to an account. Yes. That got his pen moving again, but only slightly faster. I could tell he was trying to decide whether this was a break-in or a family fight that had spilled into paperwork. I wanted to scream that my mother had announced I was adopted at Thanksgiving in front of half our relatives, that my sister had smiled, that now the only letter proving Grandma expected this was missing. Instead, I said, "I need a report number." He looked up. "Even if you can't do anything right now," I said, "I need it documented." That seemed to make him take me more seriously. He finished the report, gave me the number, and told me to change my locks. After he left, I sat on the floor beside my desk and called the legal aid clinic I had found on my phone during the drive home. By some luck, or maybe because Grandma Evelyn was still opening doors no one else could close, they had a cancellation the next morning. I slept with a chair pushed under my doorknob. At the clinic, I sat across from a woman named Ms. Alvarez, who listened without interrupting while I laid everything out. Thanksgiving, the announcement, the statement Denise emailed, Brielle's post, the credit union inquiry, the birth certificate, the hospital badge, and the missing folder. When I finished, she picked up Denise's family acknowledgement statement and read it with one eyebrow raised. "This has no legal power by itself," she said. I blinked. "It doesn't?" "No, being adopted, even if you were legally adopted, would not automatically remove your rights to an account legally placed in your name. Your mother is using legal-sounding language to intimidate you." The air left my chest all at once. Then she examined my birth certificate copy. "This is interesting," she said. "Interesting good or interesting bad? Interesting complicated." She pointed near the filing date. "This doesn't look like a typical amended adoption certificate. There's no clear adoption notation, but there is a delayed correction filing." What does that mean? It could mean several things: guardianship, parentage corrections, administrative changes. In a worse scenario, inaccurate reporting. We would need records. I thought of Paul saying it's complicated. I thought of Denise saying, "Your father and I took you in." Not adopted, took in. My phone buzzed against the table. "Mom," I silenced it. It buzzed again and again. Miss Alvarez watched me. "You don't have to answer. I won't." The fourth call went to voicemail. A moment later, a message appeared. I played it on speaker before I could talk myself out of it. Denise's voice filled the little office, low and furious. "You need to stop this now. You are going to ruin people who protected you. Do you understand me? Protected you. And if you think some clinic lawyer is going to rewrite what I sacrificed, you are making a very serious mistake." The voicemail ended. Ms. Alvarez looked at me over the file. "Save that." I already did. My voice sounded different, less broken, more awake. But consequences came faster than comfort. That afternoon, Karen from the credit union called again. Because there were competing family claims and questions raised about documentation, the account would remain secure, but any review or emergency access would be frozen until I provided additional verification. "I'm sorry," Karen said. "It's a precaution." I looked at the rent reminder on my counter, then at the certification course invoice I had planned to pay with part of the fund. Grandma had told me to use it when a door needed opening. Denise had found a way to jam that door shut without even touching the money. "Okay," I said, though it wasn't okay. By evening, Brielle made her next move. This time it wasn't a vague post, it was an email to relatives, copied widely enough that replies started landing in my inbox from people I hadn't spoken to in years. "Maliya is threatening legal action against Mom after Mom finally told her the truth about the adoption. Mom raised her, loved her, protected her, and now she's being punished for honesty. Please stand with Mom." I stared at the word honesty until it felt poisonous. Then Aunt Celeste replied all. If Denise wanted honesty, why announce this at Thanksgiving dinner in front of everyone instead of telling Maliya privately? For the first time, the family chain didn't immediately turn against me. Jonah replied next, because it was meant to hurt her. No one answered for almost an hour. Then Uncle Ray called. "I found something," he said. I stood up so fast my chair scraped the floor. "What?" "Evelyn's old notary, Mr. Bell. Retired now, but he remembers a letter. Alina Hart, Denise, in custody of a baby girl." My fingers went numb around the phone. Will he talk? He won't give details without the right people present or a legal request, but he confirmed it existed. I closed my eyes. A letter existed. Not a memory, not a rumor, a letter. Before I could process it, another message came in from Marisol. A photo. It was a church ledger entry in Grandma Evelyn's handwriting. For Alina Hart burial expenses. Beside it, Grandma had written, "For Maliya's mother, because Denise would not." I sat down hard. Alina was not just a name on a badge anymore. I called Denise back. She answered immediately. Finally, I spoke to legal aid. Silence. Then her voice changed. The polished mother disappeared. You think paperwork makes you hers? My chest tightened. Hers? Raised me from what? Denise hung up. For a long moment, I stared at the dead call screen. Then I called Ray, Celeste, and Marisol. By the end of the night, we had a plan. We would meet at Ray's house with everything we had. Mr. Bell would join by video. We would build the paper trail before Denise could bury whatever was left. I sent Denise one message. You can come tell the truth, or I'll hear it without you. Her reply came within seconds. Ask Ray why your mother never came back for you. Ray's house felt nothing like Thanksgiving. There was no long table, no polished serving dishes, no candles placed perfectly between bowls of food. Just a small living room with old carpet, a coffee table covered in papers, and 5 people sitting like the air itself might break if anyone spoke too loudly. I arrived with copies of what I still had. My birth certificate, screenshots of Brielle's posts, the credit union notes Karen had given me, Denise's email, the police report number, and a printed screenshot of Grandma's ledger entry that Marisol had found. The original letter was gone. That empty space in my folder felt louder than any document I had brought. Uncle Ray had spread old photographs across the coffee table. Aunt Celeste sat beside him with 2 family calendars from the year I was born, the paper edges curled and yellowed. Marisol had the church ledger tucked carefully in a protective sleeve. On Ray's laptop screen, Mr. Bell's face waited in a video call window, slightly grainy, his glasses low on his nose. No one was there to comfort me. That was what made it feel real. We were there to prove something. Ray looked at me. You ready? No, I said, but start. Mr. Bell cleared his throat through the laptop speaker. I want to be careful. I'm retired, and I don't have authority to release confidential material without proper process. But I can confirm what I personally remember. I leaned forward. He continued. I notarized a letter signed by a woman named Alina Hart shortly before her death. Evelyn Harper was present. Denise Harper was also present for part of that meeting. My hand closed around the edge of my chair. Aunt Celeste whispered, Denise was there, mister. Belle nodded. She was angry. I remember that clearly. She objected to the document being signed. What document? I asked. I don't want to misstate the contents from memory, he said. But the matter involved a baby girl, temporary care, and Alina wanting that child protected. Protected from who? I asked. Mr. Bell's mouth tightened. That is the part I won't guess at. My mind filled the gap before I could stop it. Alina's partner, a dangerous relative, someone Denise had rescued me from. Some version of the story that still let my mother be awful at Thanksgiving, but maybe not monstrous from the beginning. Then the doorbell rang. Everyone went still. Ray stood slowly. I didn't invite anyone else. He crossed to the door and opened it just a few inches. Denise pushed it wider and walked in like the house belonged to her. Brielle followed right behind her. My mother's eyes swept over the coffee table, the papers, the laptop, the faces in the room. Her jaw set. Well, Denise said. So this is what we're doing now. Brielle folded her arms. A little family trial? Seriously? I stood. You weren't invited. Denise looked at Ray. You're poisoning her against the only mother she's ever had. Ray shut the door behind them. You did that yourself. Brielle laughed under her breath. Maliya can't handle being adopted, so now everybody has to dig up dead people to make her feel better. I picked up my phone and tapped the voicemail. Denise's own voice filled the room. You are going to ruin people who protected you. Do you understand me? Protected you. When it ended, I looked at her. Protected me from who? Denise's face didn't move, but her eyes did. They cut toward Ray, then Mr. Bell on the laptop, then the papers on the table. From things you were too young to understand, she said. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. Brielle stepped forward. It doesn't even matter. Alina abandoned you. Mom raised you. That should be enough. The room went silent. It happened so fast, Brielle didn't realize what she had done. Aunt Celeste turned to her. You knew her name? Brielle's face flushed. I heard it recently. No, I said. You said she abandoned me. You knew more before Thanksgiving than you pretended. Brielle looked at Denise. Denise's lips pressed into a thin white line. Ray stood straighter. Alina did not abandon Maliya. Denise snapped. Ray, stop. No, you started this when you stood at Thanksgiving and used adoption like a weapon. My pulse pounded in my ears. Ray turned to me, his face full of apology and anger. Denise was never supposed to be your mother permanently. She and Paul were supposed to keep you for a short time while Alina recovered from a medical crisis. The room blurred at the edges. Temporary. Not chosen forever. Not adopted out of some noble sacrifice. Temporary. I looked at Denise. Is that true? She said nothing. Brielle answered for her too fast. Mom did what she had to do. Alina was unstable. Mr. Bell shifted on the laptop screen. That language was not in the document I remember. Brielle closed her mouth. Denise turned toward the door. I'm not staying for this. Aunt Celeste stood and moved into her path. She wasn't threatening. She didn't raise her voice. But she did not move aside. No, Celeste said. The family repeated your story for 2 days. Some of us helped hurt her because we believed you. You don't get to leave before we know whether we spread a lie. Denise stared at her. Move. Celeste didn't. Ray reached into a folder and pulled out an old photograph. My breath caught before he even handed it to me. A young woman sat on a floral couch with a baby wrapped in a pale blanket. Grandma Evelyn stood behind them, one hand resting on the woman's shoulder, the other touching the baby's foot. The woman's smile was tired but unmistakably tender. Ray said, "That's Alina." My fingers trembled as I took it. On the back, in Grandma's handwriting, were the words, Alina and Maliya, 3 weeks before Denise took over the paperwork. Denise lunged, not far. Just one sharp grab toward the photo. Ray caught her wrist before she touched it. Don't. The movement exposed her more than any confession could have. She didn't reach for a lie. She reached for proof. Mr. Bell's voice crackled from the laptop. Wait. Everyone turned. He was looking down at something off-screen. I may have one thing, he said. My retired notary archive index doesn't contain the document itself, but it lists titles and signers. He adjusted his glasses. The document involving Alina Hart was titled. He paused, reading carefully. Temporary Guardianship Revocation and Maternal Intent Statement. The room seemed to collapse inward. Revocation. Maternal intent. Even before anyone explained it, I understood enough. Alina had tried to undo whatever Denise had done. Ray moved suddenly toward one of the old family calendars Aunt Celeste had brought. Evelyn used to tuck things behind important months, he said. Denise's voice sharpened. Ray. He opened the calendar to the month I was born. Something folded slipped from behind the page and landed on the table. No one breathed. Ray picked it up and unfolded it carefully. Across the top, in dark copied print, were the words, I, Alina Hart, revoke temporary guardianship granted to Denise Harper, effective immediately. Ray's hands shook as he held the carbon copy. For once, Denise didn't tell him to stop. She stood near the door with Brielle half behind her, both of them staring at the page like it had crawled out of a grave they thought was sealed. Ray swallowed and began reading. I, Alina Hart, revoke temporary guardianship granted to Denise Harper, effective immediately. I request the return of my daughter, Maliya Alina Hart, to my care upon my medical release. If I am unable to complete transition due to illness or death, I request that Evelyn Harper oversee my daughter's placement and protection, and that Denise Harper not act alone in any decisions regarding my child. My name did not sound like mine when he read it. Maliya Alina Hart. The room blurred, but I didn't look away. Ray kept reading. Alina had signed it. Mr. Bell had notarized it. Grandma Evelyn had witnessed it. Denise's name appeared only as the temporary guardian whose authority was being revoked. Temporary. Revoked. My mother had not announced that I was adopted at Thanksgiving. She had announced the part of the lie that helped her. Mr. Bell leaned closer to his camera. That matches what I remember. Alina had been ill after childbirth. There was a later medical crisis. The child was placed with Denise and Paul for temporary care while Alina recovered. Stop talking, Denise said. Her voice was thin now. Not commanding. Desperate. Mr. Bell continued anyway. Alina wanted her daughter returned. She was very clear. I looked at Denise. You told everyone she abandoned me. Denise's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Ray folded the paper halfway, then stopped, like he couldn't bear to hide the words again. Alina found out Denise had started presenting you as hers. She was discouraging visits. Telling people Alina was too unstable, too sick, too confused. Alina signed this to take back control. Aunt Celeste covered her mouth. Marisol whispered, Evelyn knew. Ray nodded. Evelyn knew enough to try to protect Maliya, but after Alina died, Denise had already tangled everything in paperwork and family silence. Evelyn fought in the ways she could. The account, the letter, the envelope. I turned to Denise. So my mother wanted me. Her face twisted. I raised you. That's not what I asked. I fed you. I clothed you. I stayed. You stayed with a child you weren't supposed to keep. Brielle stepped forward, tears bright with anger more than regret. Mom did what she had to do. You have no idea what it was like. I stared at her, and you knew. Brielle's lips trembled, but she didn't deny it. Ray looked at me. After Evelyn died, Brielle found part of the paperwork. Enough to know the fund was connected to Alina's wishes. Enough to know Denise's story was dangerous. Brielle snapped. Grandma gave her everything. No, Celeste said coldly. Evelyn protected what was already meant for her. The room shifted again. The family that had watched Denise humiliate me was no longer standing behind her version. The lie had lost its audience. Paul arrived 20 minutes later after Celeste called him and told him he needed to come if he wanted any chance of speaking before legal aid handled the rest. He walked in, saw the carbon copy on the table, and sat down like his legs had stopped working. You knew, I asked him. He stared at the floor. At first, I knew it was temporary. At first, Denise said Alina wasn't stable enough. Then Alina died. Then it felt too late. I waited for an apology that could reach backward 24 years. He said, I was afraid of losing my marriage. Something in me went quiet. You let me lose my mother because you were afraid of losing your wife. Paul flinched, but I didn't take it back. Denise finally spoke, trying one last time to sound wounded. After everything I sacrificed, this is how you repay me? I looked at the paper. At Alina's name, at Grandma Evelyn's handwriting on the ledger. At the photo of a tired young woman holding me like I belonged to her because I did. You did not tell me I was adopted, I said. You told me I was unwanted. That was the lie. No one defended Denise after that. The consequences did not happen all at once, and they did not look like a movie. They looked like emails, appointments, records requests, and people finally choosing what to do with the truth. Celeste sent a message to the entire family, explaining that Denise's Thanksgiving announcement had left out critical facts and had been used to pressure me financially. She named the fund. She named the intimidation document. She named the temporary guardianship. Relatives who had commented under Brielle's post started deleting things. Some apologized. Some stayed silent because shame was easier than accountability. The credit union lifted the freeze after Ms. Alvarez submitted documentation proving the account was legally in my name, and that Denise and Brielle had no authority over it. Brielle lost whatever imaginary claim she thought humiliation had created. I used part of the fund to pay for the certification course Grandma had always wanted me to take. Ms. Alvarez filed a petition to obtain and annotate my birth and guardianship records. The police report about my missing folder was updated after the documents were returned through Denise's attorney. No dramatic arrest happened, but Brielle had used a spare key Denise kept, and that was enough for a no-contact agreement, a civil warning, and the kind of official paper trail Denise hated because she couldn't charm it. I cut direct contact with Denise and Brielle. Paul asked if we could talk privately. I told him silence was a choice, and I wasn't ready to comfort him for making it. Ray apologized more than once for waiting so long. I didn't absolve him, but I let him remain in my life because he had finally chosen to truth when it cost him something. By Christmas, Denise's house was not full the way it usually was. People made excuses. Brielle's posts stopped getting sympathy. The story Denise had controlled for years now controlled her reputation. I didn't go there. I hosted dinner in my apartment with Ray, Celeste, Marisol, and Jonah. Nothing matched. The chairs were borrowed. The table was too small. But nobody used love like a weapon. Weeks later, copies of Alina's records arrived with another photo Ray had found. Alina holding me as a baby. Grandma Evelyn standing behind us with one hand on both of us, like she was trying to keep us together. I framed it beside Grandma's letter. I changed my emergency contacts. I changed my locks. I secured every document in a fireproof lockbox. I finished the certification course. And privately, before I decided whether to make it legal, I began writing my name as Maliya Alina. One night, my phone lit up with a message from Denise. After everything, I'm still your mother. I looked at Alina's photo, then at Grandma's letter, then at the lockbox holding the proof Denise never wanted me to have. I deleted the message without answering. Then I locked the box, put the key in my pocket, and turned off the porch light on a home that finally belonged to me.